absolute meaningless, says the teacher. Everything is meaningless. King Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, embarked on a relentless search for meaning. He pursued wisdom, wealth, pleasure, and power, but it all left him empty, chasing the wind. Like Solomon, we often chase meaning in all the wrong places. But what if the purpose we're seeking has been right before us all along? Join us as we journey verse by verse through Ecclesiastes and discover the ultimate truth where meaning in life can truly be found.
Morning, everyone. So excited as we jump into this next series in Ecclesiastes. It's going to be a wild ride because Solomon has some pretty exciting things to share with us. But this is one of the more challenging books of the Bible, and you're going to see as we navigate this, it's a pretty awesome experience. Father, I know that you have a message for everyone in this room, that you're speaking to us today through Solomon's words, that you have wisdom to share with us that is relevant for our life, that applies to us. So may those who have ears hear the word of the Lord. In your name I pray, amen. So as we think through and begin this series on Ecclesiastes, it's normal for professors to give a last lecture when they're winding up their career, when they're in their final day of teaching. So they'll gather their students and they'll share the wisdom that they've learned over time, maybe the last nuggets of experience that they have and all of the things that they would love to share the most. Well, this was made famous by one very popular professor, and his name was Randy Pausch. And he was a computer science professor who was diagnosed with cancer and had 3 months to live. And so they invited him to give one final lecture to the student body, to his peers, to the administrators. What would be his final message with only 3 months left? And so this began a movement of the final lecture. He told students that we cannot change the cards that were dealt, just how to play the hand. His lecture became viral. Millions of people followed it, popular on YouTube and all over social media. It became a best-selling book. It sounds pretty incredible. And Randy told his students that this is not about fulfilling your dreams. It's about how to live your life. If you only had one lecture to give, you only had 3 months left, what is it that you would tell others? If you gathered your kids and your grandkids around and said, look, I've got one final message for you, what would encapsulate that message? How would you package years and years of experience and wisdom and knowledge into one final talk? Years ago, around 970 BC, another man facing his own mortality did just this. He gave his last lecture. He wasn't a professor, he was a king. He was a man who had dedicated himself to the pursuit of wisdom, and now he was ready to share it with us. He became the sage of sages. The Bible says he was the most wisest man who ever lived, who had seemed to have seen it all and experienced it all. He says this in Ecclesiastes 7, verse 15, that I have seen everything during my meaningless life. What a way to describe your life, right? Kids, gather around. I got a great message for you because my life was pretty pointless. So let me share some things I learned in its course. Well, for the next few months, we're going to unpack his lecture to his students, to us. And in this, we're given a warning. You're going to have to brace yourself because the beginning of this is rather hard. Consider his opening words, the words of the teacher, the son of David, the king in Jerusalem. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Now, right off the bat, you realize he's not a motivational speaker. If you're having a bad day, I wouldn't encourage you to go read Ecclesiastes. If you came this morning for a pep talk, buckle in. This isn't Zig Ziglar, who is said positive thinking will let you do everything better than negative thinking will. I don't think he read Ecclesiastes. By the way, Wendy and I attended, while I was in grad school, we attended Zig Ziglar's Sunday school class. Pretty awesome. It's like, hey, we're one of Zig Ziglar's students. There are 350 people in his Sunday school class. And his class was not much different from his motivational talks. He would just throw in some scripture while inspiring us to go sell more. Live for the Lord more. But this speaker in Ecclesiastes has something else in mind. He's not here to motivate us, to get us to achieve more, accomplish more, sell more. Something actually much better. But we're going to have to stay on this train long enough to get what this message really is trying to convey. You're going to have to stay all the way to the end, because we're going to discover on this journey, in this process, we're going to discover that the problem is we tend to want things easy in life. We want them nice. We want positive. We want good news. We don't want the hard stuff. We get enough of that on our own. We just show up to get inspired and feel good. So we've got to stay long enough to understand where he's trying to get us. And in this, it's going to create tension in our life, because Solomon is trying to get us to grasp and face reality, and even more so, our own mortality. And that's what's going to make this challenging. So he introduces verse 1 as the teacher. It's a title of someone who is convening a class, because you've got some lessons to give. And today I'm going to share with you 6 lessons from these first 11 verses of Ecclesiastes 1. Imagine sitting in a lecture hall with Solomon, who is not just another professor. He's not just a philosopher, an instructor, but he's the king. He's addressing a crowd of his students, and we're sitting before his throne as he shares his wisdom and experience. People like us surrounding and listening to his voice, attempting to make sense of life, to navigate the obstacles and challenges that we face, and this human search for purpose and meaning. Solomon is trying to give us the right words, the right frame of reference, the worldview that we need. And while his words may seem to be the musings of a disillusioned old man, rather, he's going to give us something with depth, some relevance, some sense of direction, especially for those of us who've lived long enough to realize that life didn't always go according to our plans. It didn't end up in just the way we imagined. This may be the most relevant book of the Bible, apart from the gospel, for our culture today. I believe that this book transcends the age of modernism into postmodernism. It's speaking to our hedonistic society, to a secular humanistic culture that believes the accumulation of wealth, the pursuit of entertainment, the pleasure and happiness is the aim of life. Solomon flies into the face of all of that rhetoric. And in this, he is trying to challenge us to recognize that this is also God's revelation to mankind. Thomas Wolfe, one of the great American novelists who wrote the NASA story, The Right Stuff, once referred to it as the highest flower of poetry, the greatest single piece of writing I have ever known. Melville, the writer of Moby Dick, called Ecclesiastes the truest of all books, for it forces us to face life as it is. And that's what Solomon is going to attempt to do. So he begins this lesson with his classmates gathered here today with a word that becomes a theme throughout the entire book. It's the word meaningless. He says it over and over again as if to drive the point. Its redundancy is of emphasis in order to communicate this driving message for us to get. Your life is pointless. Welcome to church, everyone. It's like a presidential candidate gathering a bunch of would-be voters and say, my fellow Americans, your life is pointless. Now vote for me. There are several nuances to this term, depending on your Bible translation. I today have the Christian Standard, and in it says that futility, everything is futility. If you've got the New King James Version, it says vanity. The NIV says meaningless. All of these terms are, depending upon context, is attempting to drive this one idea of emptiness, of meaningless, of uselessness. Sometimes the word is also used throughout the Bible to describe something that's temporary. It's a vapor. It vanishes. It's a mist. It's wind. It's breath, which dissipates very quickly. He places these words on top of each other. 4 times he says meaningless, declaring that life is the most meaningless of all. It's the most fleeting vapor. It's here and then it's gone. Life, before you know it, dissolves as quickly as the mist in the morning sun. And here's what Solomon is going to do in giving us these 6 lessons, and I give them to you this morning. The first lesson is this, that life is an empty account. What do we mean by that? Because if life is a meaningless vapor, what is the profit? What is the gain? What's the advantage to this thing we call life? What is the lasting value of life? This is a message that Solomon is going to drive home throughout the entire book. What's the lasting value of whatever we do? He says this in verse 3. He says, what do people gain from all of their labors, all of their work at which they toil under the sun? What remains after you've given your life to a career, a life to your work, a life to your hobbies, a life to the things that you cherish? What in the end has been gained? Maybe many of us have climbed the career ladder, accumulated possessions, and yet still find ourselves a bit empty. Because life tends to be a little elusive, doesn't it? We spend our whole life chasing that over here, and if we get there, life's going to be good. You remember, you got out of college, and man, if I could just get the job of my dreams, life's going to be perfect. It's going to be wonderful. If I can just get in that career, if I can just get promoted, if I can get the corner office, if I can get that move to Florida, life is going to be amazing. If I could just marry that short 4'11" brunette, my life is going to be perfect. If I could get the right level of salary, just $10,000 more, I'm going to be happy. If I could just get my 401k, if I could just get my golf score up and be a little better than these guys. We spend our whole life chasing that elusive thing over here, and if you're not careful, you realize you never catch anything. You're just chasing after. I've often watched dogs chase cars, and I just want to stop and see what he'd do if he could catch it. It's kind of like we talk about life as a rat race. Whether you win or lose, you're still a rat. And maybe we've spent our life chasing, and Solomon is asking us the question, what's the point of all that chasing? What's the point? After all the late nights, the deadlines, the sacrifices, what really have we gained for all that we have produced and consumed in life? Is there really any eternal value in what we've given our life to? So after he looked back over his life, he realized there wasn't much gained in the end. He says in chapter 2, verse 11, when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. This sounds pretty depressing to me. What was it all for? And if we reflected on this, perhaps maybe we would shift the way we think a little bit. And what if we shifted our focus from temporary pleasures and pursuits, things that really don't last very long after us, And instead, we focused on building relationships and using our gifts and our resources to serve God's purposes, His kingdom, that we make a difference in the world in a way that transcends generations and has an eternal impact. That perhaps we've just chased the wrong things. And I wonder if it's why when the disciples came to Jesus struggling with things that they were worried about, what they were going to eat and what they were going to wear, and Jesus said, listen, seek first the kingdom and all this other stuff will work itself out. You got to chase the right thing, guys. The Lord's going to take care of you with all the other stuff. But the disciples, like us, tend to chase after all of these things, even though our Father in heaven knows that we need them. And now He takes the audience outside. He takes this classroom outside because there's something about creation that we can learn some lessons from. And the first thing that He would tell us outside is that life could be a meaningless blur. This is a second lesson to us because here Solomon doesn't sugarcoat the truth throughout this entire book. He cuts straight to the chase, declaring that life is this fleeting vapor. And we get this. Is it me or do the years seem to blur together? I can't even remember most of my life, can you? I can remember the ups and downs, but there are complete years and decades that have been forgotten. I think of how quickly things blur together. Just the other day, I started my career. It seemed like just yesterday I graduated college and I was joining the military. Just a few days ago, my kids were born. And then I looked in the mirror this morning and I'm like, dude, you're getting old. Where did the time go? It just flies by so quickly. It's why they say that experienced life is wasted on the young because they take for granted every day. We wonder where all the time went, and it's no mystery that Solomon addresses us in verse 4. He says that generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. We can look outside and we see life will go on, but we're going to be gone. And the next generation will replace us just like the generation after that. And in this, Solomon isn't conveying cynicism. He's not just some cynical author writing a book. These are not just the words of a jaded baby boomer that's disappointed and disillusioned because life didn't work out the way. This is King Solomon, the wisest, the richest man in the world at his time. Rather, his words are a wake-up call to his listeners, to his students. He uses the word meaningless because he's trying to describe that life is a mist, and if you're not careful, it's going to be here and vanish before you know it. So he's trying to get our attention and realize that time is going to fly by so quickly. And by the way, it's fragile and it's temporary. We may be healthy today and unhealthy tomorrow. That life's going to change. And you think about it. Perhaps there were dreams you had when you were young and all that you look forward to in life. They say that's how we know we're getting older. We have more regrets than we do dreams. Because many of us are thinking of the past, whether it's nostalgia or I wish I would have done differently, lived differently. And young people don't think that way. They think, man, I've got my whole future ahead. I've got lots of dreams and things I want to accomplish. And maybe for us, we need to rethink that ourselves. And instead of spending all of our time looking backwards and I woulda, coulda, shoulda done it differently, and I have regrets and mistakes and brokenness and I wish I would have lived differently. Maybe now we turn the corner and think, with the days that I have left, how do I live them with meaning and value and purpose? And how do I make the most of every day the Lord has given me? Because life is short. And this redirection is helpful for us. Because the milestones we work so hard for, the promotions, the possessions, all as we age seem less significant than the moments we now have to live. I've been in many hospital rooms, and many of those people that were breathing their last breaths. And I never had anyone look at me and said, James, I wish I would have spent more time at the office. No one ever said that. What they did say was, I wish I would have spent more time with the people that I love. I wish I would have spent more time doing things that were meaningful and life-giving. But instead, we tend to spend our whole life chasing things that elusively never satisfy us. And so Solomon's trying to get us on the right course here. He's trying to communicate to us that this relentless march of time will go on. And life is short, and everything we chase in the world is temporary. His point is not to depress us, but to wake us up. It's to force us to step back and to ask the hard questions. What am I living for now? What am I hopeful for? What am I longing for? What am I chasing in life that's going to have a difference, that's going to be significant, that's going to have a legacy attached to it, that's going to impact eternity? So he's inviting us to reflect through this text. Life's brevity reminds us to focus on what truly matters: our walk with the Lord, our own faith and our own spiritual growth, our family and the people that we love. And it's not just family by blood, but it's family that we walk through in life. It's our brothers and sisters. It's people we've committed to go through life with. But even more so, what legacy are we leaving? And legacy is rarely occupational and material. Our greatest legacy is the impact eternally we make in the life of others. The language Solomon is using is an attempt to draw us out of complacency and back into the game, to reconcile our priorities and to force us to discard any illusions that we may have about life and to face the realities and rethink them. That's what he's trying to get us to do. So he leads us to the next hard lesson, lesson number 3, that life is an endless cycle. While some might glory in a sunset, perhaps be impressed by the blowing winds and inspired by the rivers and lakes that we used to fish in, he saw a contradiction in all of this, because the world was made by our Creator and we were placed in it to manage it and to care for creation, and yet creation lasts long after us. It tends to endure and go beyond once we've dissolved into dust. The world moves on without us. But then he saw something that bothered him. He points out the monotony of creation, the monotony of life as he's witnessing it. In verse 5, he says, the sun rises and sets day after day after day. And in verse 6, the wind blows in endless circles. And in verse 7, the rivers flow to the sea, but never do they fill it. So in verse 5 and 6, he says that the sun rises and sets and hurries back to where it rises. The wind blows to the south and turns to the north. Round and round it goes, ever returning on its course. All streams flow into the sea, yet the sea is never full. To the place the streams come from, there they go again. He's witnessing in creation this endless cycle that the world keeps turning. The seasons come and go. Is there really any true meaning in all of this other than its beauty and reflection of a creator? In other words, it seems to be just rinse and repeat over and over and over and over again. And now he begins to get personal. His lesson number 4 is life is full of dissatisfaction. We never seem fulfilled, do we? We never seem to say we've had enough of life, enough of accumulation, enough possessions. We're always wanting more. We always want better. We want different. We never seem to be satisfied. In verse 8, he says, all things are wearisome. More than one can say, the eye never has enough of seeing, nor the ear its fill of hearing. The eye keeps saying, I want more, while the rest of the body says, it's also tiring. It's interesting that we probably some of the most blessed people in the world, but it's simply never enough, is it? Because we've been chasing all these years and taught by marketers and advertisers that you're not going to be fulfilled until you have the next thing, until you have the latest iPhone. Your iPhones are a bunch of losers. And we just never seem to be content, do we? I was at Aldi's the other day, and I was shopping, and I'm standing in line. And I guess that day, all of you decided to go to Aldi's because I'm way back in line watching my milk expire. And as I'm standing in there, I'm like, my gosh, I'm going to be here for like an hour waiting in line. And I was probably like number 3. And yet in my basket is a nice steak for dinner, and all I can do is complain. I've got more in my basket than most people in the world have in their refrigerator. And yet what do? I just complain. I wish the line was quicker. I wish Starbucks made my coffee faster. I wish the internet was faster. What kind of place are we living in? Someone, I need to speak to the manager. Because it's never enough, fast enough, good enough. And if we're not careful, you and I find ourselves in that spirit of disillusionment, and no one else is good enough. And so we tend to find ourselves disappointed with life and disappointed with others, and we become jaded and cynical. And unfortunately, our life becomes one of not satisfaction, not content, but dissatisfaction. We keep chasing, but we should grow tired of the chase. Recognizing our own mortality, recognizing our own destiny. My daughter called me the other day and she's sick and she's like, Dad, I'm dying. And I'm like, babe, we're all dying. Suck it up, Buttercup. And she's like, where's Mom? And I'm like, call me if you ever need another pep talk. Sorry, babe, I'm studying Ecclesiastes right now. Oh, by the way, your life is meaningless. This isn't helping me. So I told her, babe, we're all dying. Some of us faster than others. But we're all rushing towards the deadline of life. So Solomon's trying to get us to think through this deeply, that if this is all true, we could either see this in a way that's depressing and negative and pessimistic, or we could see the potential of changing our life in a way that postures us to look at it differently. I think he's leading us to the next lesson where he tells us that life is really the same. It's a bit of repetition. It's the same old, same old. Do you ever feel like the village is Groundhog Day? It's like, hey, what are you going to do today? Same thing I did yesterday. Called a mentor of mine up, and I'm like, hey, what are you going to do this weekend? And he says, James, I'm retired. Every day's Saturday. He said, the only demarcation that I have is Sunday because I go to church. Other than that, it's all a blur. The only reason you know what day it is because you have golf games on Friday and you have pickleball on Tuesday, and those become demarcations in your life. Other than that, it's Groundhog Day. It's a pleasant one, but it's Groundhog Day. Did you see the movie by Bill Murray? He woke up every day to experience the same day, but he learned to play guitar and do ice sculpture, and it's pretty awesome. But how many of us feel like it's Groundhog Day? That life just seems to go in motion. I feel that sometimes about myself. I'm like, I get tired of caring for myself. This is a lot of work. I got to groom myself, feed myself. It's like having your own pet. And I get so tired of taking care of me. It's like a full-time job. You're hungry again? Fine, I'll feed you. I got to groom you and bathe you. When will it stop? When we think of this, it reminds me, I was an office manager when I was in grad school for Lazy Boy. And I would put together the advertisement for the next blowout sale that, by the way, we had last month. We're just hoping you have amnesia. See, all the prices were always the same. We would just tell you it was on sale, and you'd come buy it because you're mindless consumers. And you see sale, and you want it. I'm not just talking about you, me too. Went to Publix the other day, and I always go to the buy one, get free section, and I think, what a deal. Wendy's going to be so proud of these 6 cans of chicken noodle soup. I've got a whole pantry of buy one, get one free. And I look at the expiration, and I'm like, ooh, this beef jerky doesn't expire till 2026. I've got enough food for Armageddon because of buy one, get one free. Solomon tells us in verse 9 this: what has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one can say, look, this is something new. It was here already. Long ago, it was here before our time. Now, I had to think hard about this because I'm like, we're in one of the greatest ages of civilization when it comes to technology. How does this reconcile with the world of AI and robotics? My daughter was in Phoenix recently at work, and she called an Uber, and she got in the vehicle, and the vehicle started driving, and there was no driver. And she was FaceTiming us and like, look, there's no driver. And she's like, what do I do? And I'm like, buckle up, buttercup. You notice the theme of my parenting. You can use it. I went through a drive-through the other day, and the drive-through was AI asking for my order. I was like, wow. I called a support line, and it was AI, not some guy in India I couldn't understand. The world's changing quickly. But watch this. There are things about the world that never changes. And that's what Solomon's trying to communicate here. No matter how much technology evolves, the experiences and struggles of humanity remains the exact same. We still struggle with communication, no matter how much communication we have. Have you noticed that? We can communicate more with people 24 hours a day than ever in the history of civilization, and we still don't know how to communicate. I've done 5,000 hours of marriage counseling with folks. The number one problem was communication. And I'm like, you got 14 devices to help you communicate. What's the problem? Things are the same. Relationships, striving for meaning, purpose, dealing with our own mortality, all of this remains unchanged from generation to generation. We all struggle for belonging. We all struggle for meaning and purpose. We all struggle for value. We struggle for love and for dreams and hopes. We struggle to find our own community and people. We struggle with faith in the great existential questions of humanity. It doesn't change no matter how much technology you have in your house or in your hand. Smartphones changed the world 30 years ago. The internet changed the world. Modern inventions, but extensions of humanity's timeless desire to connect to other people and to consume information. From the printing press to the smartphone, we're after the same thing: to find connection with others and to gather more knowledge and information and help. The medium has just changed. And with all the advancements of life, we're still not satisfied. We want faster, and yet we still wrestle with the great questions. Societies rise and societies fall, and what feels revolutionary today will become obsolete tomorrow. We are in a throwaway society where most of the things that we had 10 years ago was not relevant anymore. The things you chase decay and die. I was looking at my car, the odometer the other day, and I told Wendy, I was like, Wendy, we got 130,000 miles on our car. Now's the time to start praying. because things just don't last. And so we may think we've got forever, but the reality is we don't. So he closes his lesson for us with this most painful reality, lesson number 6, that life is a forgotten moment. Just as there's no profit in work, few of us will ever be remembered. I was thinking about this. How about your great-great-grandfather? Did you know him and what he did and what his life was about? And I'm thinking, no, I remember my grandfather, but not my great-great-grandfather. I don't know anything about him. Maybe you do or don't. But that means my great-great-grandchildren will know nothing about me or my life. And if that's true, we're only 3 generations from being forgotten. Yes, there's an exceptional few that are remembered throughout history, but the billions are completely forgotten. Eventually, no matter what your accomplishments, you too will soon become a faint memory. Try going back to your place of work. If you've been retired 20 years, show up at the office and say, "Hey guys, I'm here." And they're like, "Someone call security." No one remembers you. You laugh, but I feel mocked every time I walk into a McDonald's because I was French fry cook of the year. And nobody cares. I make the announcement, and the lady behind the desk says, "Well, sir, was that a number 1? What do you want?" Dude, I ran this place. You've done the same thing, right? I remember back when I used to cook fries. A lot better than these. No one cares. I won Officer of the Year in the Air Force. I remember how awesome that was, and now no one would remember. And that's going to go with me, because nobody really cares. It was for that moment a very significant moment in my life, and I loved it, and it was powerful. But now you could go in my garage and see boxes of my Air Force plaques that none of y'all have asked for. Last night I preached at Southern Oaks, and a guy came up afterwards and he says, "James, I was a ER doc that specialized. I was good at what I do. People sought after me. I changed lives." And I looked at him and I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't have been able to pick him out of any of the rest of you. One day you could be changing lives, and the next you're just changing clubs on a golf course. How do we reconcile all of this in a way that makes a difference? In verse 11, Solomon says this. He says, "No one remembers the former generations, and even those yet to come will not be remembered by those who follow them." If I could tell my kids, listen, guys, no one's going to remember you, so make your life count. Make sure you're making an impact, that it's significant, that it has eternal consequences. Because these aren't the words simply of a bored cynic, the complaints of a pessimist. Rather, it's a wise teacher who's trying, by standing on the edge of death, to tell us how we can live differently, with clarity, forcing us to face our realities. That understanding that life may not always work out the way we expected. We work hard, but someone just replaces us. Someone gets our title, they fill our position, they take our office. We raise our kids to love God and have our values, and they seem to abandon them as they grow older. We take care of ourselves, but we still get cancer. Life has this vicious cycle, and it goes on. We're not as important as we think we are. But in this, Ecclesiastes calls us to consider God. That perhaps the most meaningful thing in the world is our relationship with Him. And then life is seen through the lens of that relationship. Because if the only thing that matters is what is eternal, we always find ourselves facing our Creator. We find ourselves considering that only God brings meaning. Only God makes things new. Only God brings satisfaction. And it is only Him that enables us, equips us, and empowers us to live a life that has eternal significance. Without Him, life is meaningless. With Him, you can do anything. The question Solomon has for you today is, what then will you do with the life that you have left. Either you're going to chase after the wind, or you're going to chase after the things of God that will last forever. You decide. Father, thank you for your message. Thank you for Solomon, who helps us to wrestle with the hard things, to grasp the difficulties, help us to think through this text in a deeper way. Lord, it's my prayer that as we go forth in life, we would consider all the things you would have for us, how we are to live, to behave, to speak, to serve, to give. Help our lives make a difference in the world. In Jesus' name I pray. Would you stand with us in closing worship?